Welcome back, my friends, to the Hippie Moms podcast. Today we have Hilary Boynton with us from School of Lunch. I can't wait for you to hear her story. But first, welcome, Hilary. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we just, even before the podcast, it was just like, felt like such a natural, organic conversation. And I'm so excited to bring your story. So, the listeners have heard a little bit about who you are, but kind of tell us how you got to School of Lunch and how that all unfolded.
Okay, so my story started when I was in high school. I fell for the fat-free propaganda and really fell for it hard. For I would say almost a decade, I was really rigid and extreme about all of that. But I was that kind of type A kid and developed an eating disorder around it. And I was an athlete at the time. Soccer was like my thing. So I was playing like hardcore sports. And like senior year in high school, I had stress fractures in both my femur bones, both my tibias. No one talked to me about diet. Like I didn't think anything of it. I went on to play Division I soccer, and this is like in the early 90s. So it was just like, again, fat-free, carbo loading, all the things. I had no idea about diet. I wanted to major in nutrition and fitness. I thought I had all the answers, like fat is the devil, and if you just avoid it, then you'll be so healthy. And, but I had bad skin. I was on Accutane twice. So they put me on the birth control pill. Like I was kind of a hot mess and just like, chugging along, burning my body to the brink and like replenishing with nothing nutrient dense at all. Like that word wasn't even in my vocabulary. Cereal and pasta, all the things, bagels, all the things. So fast forward, I graduated and met my husband my senior year, and we got married when I was 25. And then boom, at 26, I found myself pregnant, excited to be pregnant. And then suddenly I had a miscarriage, and I went on to have 4 more miscarriages over the next 3 years. I know it was like the hardest time of my life. Like now I can look back and like, be okay. But in that moment, it was, I'm sure many of your listeners can relate, because I didn't even know what a miscarriage was. No one had ever said, I'd never heard of anybody who had one. Like I was just so in the dark, and it was so devastating. My best friend had called me literally the day that I miscarried and said, I'm pregnant. And it was just like, wanted to be excited for her, but following that whole thing. So anyway, it was just really stressful and very traumatizing. And as it went on and I had more and more miscarriages, I couldn't figure out like why my body was failing me at such a young age. And, they just said your eggs aged faster than your body. And, we'll just do all these fertility treatments and all these things. And so I was blessed with triplets we did in vitro after like all the things, the Clomid, the whole thing. Nothing was working. We did in vitro once, it didn't work. And then I did it a second time, and boom, all of a sudden, triplets. So I was like, okay, 3 babies, 3 years of infertility, 2 boys and a girl. It was kind of like, woof, like we got it all, like slam dunk. And then when the triplets were 3, I was like, maybe it'd be nice to try and have 1 more baby to see what it's like to have one. I thought I'd have to go back to all the treatments and stuff. And boom, like I thought about it and I was pregnant. And I thought for sure I'd have a miscarriage, and then he's stuck. So I'm sure that stress as my infertility went on was just like my nervous system was a mess. And then when my 4th baby was 6 months old, I found out I was pregnant with my 5th. And it was just like, I don't even know how that happened. Like, boom, blink my eyes. And all of a sudden, 5 babies under the age of 4. And I had started to think of like, when you become a mom, you want to feed them the right things. And I was trying to breastfeed the triplets. But we were doing a lot of things wrong, like microwaving bottles. And I was eating balance bars, like, trying to just survive. I didn't have any concept of like postpartum and nourishing myself. And it just was, no one talked to me about anything. So I was kind of on my own and just chugging along with my usual kind of fat-free thing. And, but when I started feeding the babies, I was like making their own, baby food. And there was this health food store down the street that had kind of mentored me through my miscarriages. And so I was like, okay, organic is good. And I wanted all organic, but it was like organic pirate booty and organic cereals. And if it said organic, I was like, cool, they can have it. It's still not nutrient dense.
Right.
And then my 4th baby, all of a sudden, I don't know, a couple months old, was just broken out in eczema head to toe. And I was just like, didn't know what to do. I tried everything. I went to all the doctors. I did an elimination diet. I'm nursing him and I could only eat a few foods. He's scratching like every night. I'd have to pin him to my body for 2 hours just to like keep him from scratching. And I just was, and then I was like headed towards an autoimmune issue. I'm sure like it would take 10 seconds for my right eye to open in the middle of the night. I thought I had shingles, like my body was tingling everywhere. No one could figure out what's wrong with me. And I, like, by, whatever, the universe just, I was on my computer one day and Alice Waters, Her Edible Schoolyard, and Jamie Oliver, I don't even remember exactly how it all came about, but I just think back like Alice Waters and Jamie Oliver somehow came into my field, and I was like, kids need real food. They need real food at schools. And so I was like, I have to help this. And so my kids weren't even in school yet. And I was just like determined to change school lunches. And I got introduced to this woman who had tried prior. And she's like, if you want to try, it was really hard, but I'll jump back in the ring with you. And I went to her house, and she was just like, she's telling me all about this Weston Price, this and Weston Price, that. And I'm like, what is she talking about? And I ended up telling her about my son it's eczema, and she said, I healed my child with asthma with raw milk. You have to put your son on raw milk. I'm like, what the hell is raw milk? I'd never even heard of it. I'm drinking my fat-free skim milk over here. But I was so desperate. She said, my mom and my sister and I do this co-op. We'll pick it up for you and drop it off. So they started dropping off raw dairy, and I put him on raw milk and cod liver oil, and he was like completely healed in a matter of months. And that was like, and I had put him on the steroid cream and the Zyrtec twice a day, like kind of like, oh, I didn't want to. And it helped initially. And then as I would forget to put it on, his eczema would flare. So the like mama bear in me knew this was a Band-Aid. And so when the raw milk, all of a sudden, just like the healthy fats, he was healed. And now he's 17 with like no asthma, no eczema, no allergies. He's just like, that's what the doctors kind of said. They go hand in hand. He might outgrow this, he might not. And here he is now, like, nothing. So that was my like eye-opening experience of like, wow. And I went to a Weston A. Price conference. I don't know if you're familiar with Weston Price or your people are, but they can look it up. And I heard Sally Fallon speak, who's the owner or the founder of the Weston A. Price Foundation. And she talked about, so Weston Price was this dentist in the 20s and 30s who traveled all around the globe and studied indigenous tribal cultures, and he studied their diet. So I'm sitting there like with my latte, like listening to this woman speak and showing these pictures of all these people with like beautiful broad bone structure and perfectly straight teeth and vibrant health. And she's talking about how they had special fertility diets for the couple and how they prepared for pregnancy. And I was just like, what? Like it all made perfect sense to me. And I was just like, I have been duped my whole life. Like I never knew any of this.
Wow.
And I literally walked out the door and I threw my latte in the trash and I looked left and the Amish are there, all decked out, the whole Amish thing. Like, they've got like sourdough bread and sprouted nuts and pastured meats and raw cheese and all this stuff. And I was just like, the Amish are here. And I started talking to them about how raw milk had healed my son. And they're like, we need someone to run a co-op in Massachusetts. So I'm like, I'm your girl. I will do it. So for like 6 years, I ran a kind of a private membership, underground co-op out of my home, just wanting everybody to have access to these beautiful foods. And it was, not legal in Massachusetts to get it from the grocery store. So, so I did that and started teaching cooking classes out of my home. I just wanted to like shout from the rooftops, like real food is medicine. Everyone needs to know it. And we have a child who has epilepsy as well. So I was like, okay, if, food healed the eczema, then maybe we should pursue this for epilepsy. And I'd heard about the GAPS diet, which is the gut and psychology syndrome, the gut and physiology syndrome. And I'd heard Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride speak about this like special diet of healing and sealing leaky gut. And so I was like, oh gosh, should we venture into this? And this medical intuitive said like, your whole family needs the GAPS diet. Like you guys should just do it. So we ventured into that, and a woman in my cooking class was also on the GAPS diet and we were very overwhelmed. It's this kind of potential 2-year protocol. And there was nothing really, this is, I don't know, 15, 17 years ago. So it's like, there was the internet, like the bloggers, there was like nothing out there. So it's just like, she's like, we need to write a book about this. And I said, we do. So we ended up writing the Heal Your Gut cookbook, which was designed to like be a roadmap for mamas and dads to like curl up in bed and just read and see these beautiful photographs of real food and know that you can eat real, beautiful, delicious food and still heal and heal your family. So literally that came out in 2014. The next week, my husband was diagnosed with throat cancer. And so we were just like, oh my gosh, like we knew so much about, just health and wellness and immune system and everything at this point that it just like elevated our whole healing journey, like, tenfold. And this is one of my reasons why I'm so passionate is this. She's like, once you get to that point or that diagnosis, it's really devastating because your whole life gets flipped upside down. You're fighting for your life. I had 5 little kids, and you know, we didn't end up like really telling many people for like 8 months because we just knew we'd be like pushed in one direction, and we wanted to get his immune system well balanced and get him ready to fight and all this stuff. So it just was a really trying journey that I don't wish on anybody. My $1 million question is, how do we wake people up for the before before the wake up call, before that frying pan to the head,
Yeah.
before that diagnosis? And I've come to realize I think it's human nature to wait for that wake up call, which is unfortunate because we spend all of our time and all of our money chasing health. And if you have your health, you're the wealthiest person in the world, which most
Really.
people don't realize, because once you're faced with that, you're just like, oh, I just wish I could go back, right? So
Mhm.
we ended up moving from Massachusetts to California to Los Angeles, and literally like the week we moved to Los Angeles, my book came out. And so all of a sudden I came from this little small colonial town in Massachusetts to Los Angeles, like Venice Beach, like people from all over the world. And I didn't know anybody. My book had just come out, but I would meet these elders, these older people from different parts of the world. And I would show them my book and they'd say, this is the way we ate growing up and we were never sick. And now our children and our grandchildren, we see like we've become Americanized and we're all sick. And so it was super fascinating. And literally, my husband's first day out of bed, we drove to this small little mountain town to just check out called Topanga in between Santa Monica and Malibu. And this store owner said to us, oh, there's this brand new little nature-based school that started down the street. You guys should check it out. Like, people are moving here for it. And we drove to this little school, it's like a mile down the road. And the chef there was like, oh, the kids just caught their own fish today. And we cooked it up. And I really want to roast a whole goat. I was just like, what? We have to go here. And so, just we couldn't afford it. And we ended up getting like 90% financial aid to send the triplets there. So it's just like, so everything just flowed and we got in. And then as the school grew, there were only like 30 kids at this time. And then as the school grew, they outsourced the food. And it just became a little bit more like standard American diet. And I had worked for 2 years to like heal my family. I'm like, this isn't what I signed up for. This is not how children should be eating. And this isn't aligned with your nature-based school. And so I pushed and got given the job of the snack coordinator and the consultant to the lunch lady. And I just went to town. I went to all the farmers markets, spoke to all the farmers I knew, and brought in like whatever I could to just show the most beautiful, local, nutrient-dense snacks. I would bring farmers in and parents in, and it was just really beautiful. And then like 2 hours later was kind of the standard American fare. So it just sort of outshined the lunch program. And by Christmas time, the head of the school said, I was just like, my story. Everyone has their health journey. Like, the kids need nutrition now. Let's just do this. And he said, if I give you the keys to the kitchen, are you ready? And I was just like shaking in my boots because I'm really just like a home cook. I've never been to culinary school. I've never worked in a commercial kitchen, but I knew what the kids needed. So I just said yes. And we just sort of like bootstrapped this program, brought in, a friend of mine was going to culinary school. I said, do you want to be an intern? She said, yes. And then another private chef came and worked, and we just started. And now we're in our 9th year, and we believe we're serving up the most nutrient-dense school lunch program in the country. And I just know with all of my heart that it works 100%. And so we developed also the School of Lunch Training Academy. We've just completed our 7th academy so we've trained 104 people so far to go out into the world and take this information and do whatever they want with it. They don't have to aspire to be a school lunch chef. They can want to just take control of their own health, go into, a restaurant, hospitals, their community, churches, anything. And so it's really just be the ripple, right? And so we have from 16-year-olds to 75-year-olds, we have professional chefs, we have total newbies, and it just totally works. So that's where we are. That's the long and the short of it. And sorry,
That's
I
okay.
let
Nope.
my dog out. And yeah, so that's where we are. So we're training people, and we're just like really at this moment now where we're ready to scale this and help as many people as possible, because we just know that the people that want this information are those that are ready to just go out and make the change.
Oh, I just want to take a moment and just be with that. And I mean, that is an incredible story. I hope you write a book
Oh,
because it
well,
really, really, truly, like I feel your heart. Like you had no choice but to make these changes. You got that frying pan hit to the head, and you fell for it. You know, you fell for the the backwards nutritional advice that we most all of us that are listening have fell for, and we can
Yeah.
all relate to that. And wow, I'm so in awe. So obviously, we're going to talk a little bit about the resources that you have a little bit more towards the end, but can you kind of walk us through the foundations that you use through food? Maybe it's the GAPS diet, but are there certain things that our listeners can really start considering moving
Mm.
towards this way of eating, this way of living, this way of using food as medicine?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I would just say, do your best and take it one step at a time. You can't do it all at once. So be very gentle with yourselves and just like move through it as best you can, whether that's like finding your local egg farmer or meat supply or raw dairy. I mean, the foundation really is, the GAPS principles are foundational, the Weston A. Price Foundation. It's really based on that. And we don't eliminate anything, but we properly prepare everything. So we're making our own sourdough bread with locally grown grains that are freshly milled in Pasadena, and then we make sourdough. So it's 100% whole grain. And then we have all of our meats are roasted in house, aside from like some beautiful salamis and ham that are from Fermani. And so we're making our own roast beef and turkey breast and roasting our chickens and slow roasting meats. And so the chickens get roasted and we turn all the bones into a bone broth. We ferment vegetables, we ferment raw dairy. We slow roast meat, so like chuck roll, pork shoulder, we'll roast those, so like we have kind of a system to roll out throughout the week that works really well so that we can accomplish all that we want to accomplish. And we're in no waste kitchen. So we have, we compost everything and we use all the bones. We cook nose to tail. We put organ meats in wherever we can, whether it's in a bolognese sauce or
Mhm.
soups, wherever, and we even have like pluck seasoning, which is an organ-based seasoning. So I'll put that out at snack and for them to sprinkle on eggs or popcorn or in their broth. And they're like, what is this? And I'm like, liver, heart, pancreas, spleen, and kidney. And the little kids are like, what? And I'm like,
What
yeah,
is
do
that?
you think we're just going to eat steaks and burgers? Like we honor
Yeah,
the animal by using the whole
yeah,
animal. So yeah,
right.
so it's very just like, it's very simple. Like one of my French elders that I met in the very beginning, when we moved to LA, I met her at the butcher shop. She's like not even 5 feet tall, and she was buying bones to make a broth. And I became friends with her, and she said, Hilary, never forget that simplicity is gourmet. And
Mm,
that has become like a tagline for us because we overthink it so much, and there's so much information out there with beautiful recipes and Food Network and all this stuff, which is great, but it can be sort of a lot of pressure to produce this gorgeous meal. And honestly, in our household, like if we have healthy proteins, like we'll slow roast a pork shoulder and have like we just made brisket, and my son, I'm like, oh my God, I think he's had that for like the last 5 meals. Like we got to do something else, like we're just like everybody else trying to make it work, but we have a communication in the family of like what's going to go in the oven and how we're going to do it. But like slow roasting meats is one of those super simple things where time does all the work, and you
yeah,
can make tacos, you can make, whatever. There's so many different things you can do
yeah,
to make it easy and simple. So just going local and seasonal, and then the more you start to eliminate the processed foods and the ultra processed foods, cooking bacon eggs instead of cereal, or like
yeah,
doing a soaked oatmeal or some yogurt, stuff like that, you'll start to just weed out all of the things. And then as you get going, you can kind of like increase the nutrient density. Like if organ meats you're squeamish around that, just like start where you are, and maybe you're going to make a pate, or just start. That's my advice, is just start.
it's just starting somewhere, and there's always an opportunity to look for better options. If
Mm-hmm.
it's like, okay, I'm going to focus on meat this month, and where I can, focus on local farmers, and because it really it makes a difference. I mean, meat is almost I get my meat less expensive from the farmer's market than I would at Whole Foods or some other places that's grass fed. It's much less expensive for me to go to a farmer and to buy in bulk too. So you
Yeah.
can actually save money by going this way too.
Yeah, and cooking nose to tail, right? So you're not just purchasing the most expensive cuts of meat. We must learn to like use the whole animal. Like that's really the most economical way, but like
Love
it's
that.
not any fault of our own. We just weren't taught, right? Like I say, we have to become the ancestors in training because we have to step into the work and relearn what was once common knowledge and passed down from generation to generation. It just is broken, right? So it's like if we don't step in, then we're really going to lose it because we're really on the brink of losing those traditions and that way of life. And so it's, if we can, like we say, we're joyfully disrupting the trend of chronic illness in this next generation of kids. And I added joyfully like 2 years ago because I'm like, you have to make it fun and joyful. Otherwise, it's too hard. People are too busy and they just kind of put the blinders on and shut down.
Well, that
So,
that really is what we're working with in this change is people are so busy that we're
mhm,
not spending any time in our kitchens anymore. We're
right.
grabbing fast food, we're using microwaves and all that, but it does take something for someone to go and actually source their food
Mhm.
somewhere and come
Yeah,
back.
it's work. It
It,
really is work.
it really is. And I can't remember I heard this, but we're going to invest, we're going to either take the easy route and then it's going to be really hard,
Pay
right?
later. You pay now or you pay later. Yeah.
You pay later. And especially if you want to move away and deter from, that the frying pan in the head, that
Mm.
diagnosis, because that will make you change.
Yeah. And it's not even just financially expensive, which it's so expensive to be sick. It's the real sad
Mm.
thing for me is your time. You don't get that back. Like I've had a lot of sadness. Like this was, 2014, but I've had a lot of sadness now. My triplets are like almost 21. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, the last 10 years it's just been a lot and you don't get that, you're fighting for your life instead of coaching soccer or going to the play or, you're in doctor's appointments in hospitals and it's just like not what anybody wants to be,
No.
right? And then you're in a system too, which is really hard. And so if you're, aware of alternative ways too, none of that is covered by insurance. And there's all sorts of information. So, there's $50,000 clinics and you're just like, oh, like, if you knew it would work, you'd be like, okay, we'll figure out a way. But then there's no guarantee with anything. And I think with something like cancer and a lot of disease, it's an emotional, physical, and spiritual journey. So, I don't know, it's a very insightful thing when you kind of face your mortality and then just as your kids get older, I don't know, there's a lot that's happened across the last 20 years for me and just revelations of, trauma and holding on to things and stuck energies. All these things are so important and using your voice. I mean, throat cancer is, that throat chakra there. And so there's a lot to unravel. So I always say to people too, if you do get that frying pan to the head, you have a moment, you have a beat to like pause,
Mm.
breathe into it. They'll scare the living daylights out of you that like you got to get in there tomorrow and
Yeah.
they'll have everything set up for you tomorrow. But I say, just you didn't get it overnight. You're not going to fix it overnight and you're not going to die overnight. So it's
Yeah.
like it's a process. So just,
Yeah.
take your time, just digest it first, right? And then figure out your best path forward.
Yeah. And it really is. I mean, we can get stuck in that system and they
Mhm.
and they use fear around it
Yeah.
so much to keep us
That's
in
the worst.
the
The
worst
worst.
because you're like, well, if I don't do this, I could die. And,
Right.
and when you're in that fight or flight, you're not going to make any good decisions anyway. I mean, you're
Yeah.
already like in fear. So you like
Right.
taking a beat and a pulse and and there's so much information out there. I mean, we were kind of talking earlier about, social media and how it is, it's two-edged sword and we don't want to be into it, but there is so much information now, like Crispy Cancer and the Gerson Institute and all of these resources out there that you can really start and School of Lunch and your cookbook, which I'm actually have in my Amazon cart. But I want to put that here too, just to give people more information and more resources to
Mhm.
just start broadening their horizons when it comes to food as medicine, because a lot of people don't even know where to start, Hilary.
They don't know where to start. And really, food isn't everything, but food is so foundational. And our bodies are miraculous beings of nature. This is like the one thing at the training academies that I want people to take away is that we are Mother Nature's miracle. We're not separate. We become so disconnected. And I think like it happened one day, very first camping trip of the school that I went on, this little nature-based school, the head of school, we were up in the redwoods and He had the kids circle up in this huge field, all surrounded by the redwoods. And he's like, I just want to take a moment and have gratitude for these beautiful redwoods that have held space for us all week. And at the base of every redwood are billions of microbes keeping them healthy and alive. And I just like, in that moment, I looked at him and I was just like, in my head, like, you are a redwood. You have billions of microbes at the base of you, keeping you healthy and alive. And so just like, you wouldn't pour gasoline around the base of a redwood or a plant or whatever and expect it to thrive. Why are we doing that to
Mm,
ourselves? And then we have, and our children, right? We're
yes,
soda and goldfish and all these things that, are just basically like gasoline to our systems. And so if we have all this reverence for things in nature, like how miraculous, like a flower and the symmetry and the butterflies, and it's so beautiful, and we look in awe, right? If we could just turn the mirror on ourselves
love
and
that.
unzip ourselves and see all the systems that are miraculously, tirelessly working every second of every day to keep
Mm,
us healthy and alive, maybe we would treat ourselves a little differently. And
yeah.
we're designed to work. You cut your finger, you don't tell it to go. You're not like, okay, clot, scab, heal. It does it, right? Your body knows what to do. We grow babies, some of us in our bodies, right? Like it knows what to do if we give it the right,
Yes.
the right nutrition and the right
Mm.
exposure to sunlight and sleep and all the things, right?
I love
So
that so much because it reminds us that we have that innate
ability. Yeah.
capability to heal, and
Yes.
all we need are the right nutrients, the right
Yes.
building blocks to support the body to do it. We don't have to do anything. We just have to support it.
Right.
And there's always hope because the body heals. It's like no matter,
Mhm.
even if you've been living this way 30, 40 years, I've seen people completely
Oh, I
change their
know.
life around.
It's amazing, right? Like so quickly. Your body wants to be in homeostasis. So
Yeah,
it will
yeah.
go that way if you start to give it the right things.
Yes, yes, yes. And you were saying too, I mean, what are besides food, what are the things that we really need on a day-to-day basis to truly help us thrive?
Yeah, I think well, like we have Regen living on our school of lunch as part of it. It's just like, sunshine and sleep and community, healthy water, laughter, nature connection. All these things are so important. It's really not just about food. I think food is so foundational, but if you're
Part of-
isolated or you're
Yeah.
super rigid, or it's just like they say, like you can have the healthiest diet and have the worst marriage or the worst job, and you can still get hit with something bad because, the stress, I think stress is honestly the number one killer. It's just like what tipped things over the edge. And so, and with these children, what we don't realize is that these children, like, we'll have a lot of grandparents say, well, we ate this way and we're fine. And it's like, yeah, but these kids are coming into the world with a toxic load of, like when I wrote my book, so 10 years ago, like the average baby had 287 toxins in their cord blood alone. So they're coming into this world with a toxic load. The moms, the health of my microbiome is not nearly as rich and diverse as my great grandmother's, right? So they're inheriting that microbiome when they come through the birth canals, when they kind of swallow a big gulp of bacteria, basically, simplifying it here, but that's their first inoculation of their microbiome. And now there's like C-section. I mean, all my babies were C-sections.
Yeah.
So you do what you have to do, but they didn't get that. So they're getting that, they're inheriting poor gut flora, then they're getting a vaccine day one of life. They're not
Oh,
being breastfed half the time. Then they're getting an ear infection,
right.
getting antibiotics. They're put on processed foods, and grains and stuff way too early, and they're not properly prepared. And then they get another ear infection and another round of antibiotics. And it's just like, how the heck are these kids supposed to
Thrive. I
get
know.
get on top of it, right? They can't. And then these parents are trying to figure out what's going on with the kids, and then it's very normalized. Like my kids, I had like speech delays, and my eczema baby was like borderline dyspraxic and a head tick, and then the epilepsy is all just like, oh, they'll go into the, I don't remember what it's called, but the therapy for this or the therapy,
Yeah,
this is very normal.
yeah.
So, but it's
And
not.
and
We're
here's a
just
couple prescription drugs, and then here's more for the
right.
symptoms to come.
And now, yeah, now it's like a machine where they really do want to just get you on prescriptions for life.
As
Like,
early as possible. I mean, it's insane. I mean,
yeah, and that's the way they're trained. Like I'm not even faulting the doctors because I think that's just how it's
oh,
ingrained
it
and they
is.
just so wholeheartedly believe it.
I know. I really
So,
do have compassion for doctors, and there are some that are actually leaving their practices because they see like this is not working. But they
Yeah.
also are, but the way that they're conditioned and then now they're going into practice and now they're in debt. They have no other choice because
Right.
they,
This really handcuffs. Yeah.
yeah,
Casey Means, I don't, you guys can look her
yeah,
up. She's doing a great job in her brother Callie and her book, Good Energy. Like they're shouting from the rooftops.
yeah, yeah.
So, and she's a Stanford doc. Yeah.
And I believe, yes, and I believe there are some shifts and these are some changes that are happening.
Mhm.
And I think we're here at this pinnacle in time, Hillary, as we all are as mothers, to truly start to shift the direction that we're going in, health wise.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
more that people wake up, the more that we start voting with our dollars, we start
Mhm.
supporting local farmers, we start stop buying processed foods, they're going to have to change. They're not going to change from the top down. That's the thing
Um,
going to change. It's going to change from the bottom up, and we have to stop voting for for them poison.
Yeah, I know. I've realized that like our school lunch program is this beautiful bottom-up approach where you get these little 5-year-olds, that are going home and saying, "Can you make fermented ginger carrots like Miss Hillary or sourdough bread?" And the parents are like, "What?" And then we invite the parents in, and then they're like, "We want in, and we want to know how to do this." And then we train people at the training academy. And just I was telling you earlier, just this morning, like I was getting a text. So these mamas are fierce. I love it. We are the ones who are like making the change and just beating down the doors of the heads of school because I just met Alice Waters last week, who, yeah, I know it was like, or 2 weeks ago, it was just like such a moment in my life. But she said,
Oh,
if you have an enlightened principle, you can do anything. If you don't, which 9 times out of 10, they're not, it's very, very challenging, right? So it's just like so important that these moms start to wake up, right? I mean, we had an enlightened principal after me talking to him, whatever, and so I've been blessed to be able to do. But there's a lot of these moms that have come to our training academy and they're going to their schools and they're, having resistance. And this mom this morning said, "I just went and talked about all your values and all your points, and they're hearing it. And we had lots of tears. And these moms that I never knew their stories were all of a sudden sharing their stories." And she said, another mom who came to our training academy inspired her too by just saying, "I just asked moms if they're happy with the school lunch." And that just like opened the conversation. So really, it's like, I think a lot of us are feeling alone. This mom was like, "I'm just so overwhelmed and I'm on empty. I don't have the, bandwidth anymore." But when we come together, we're so powerful. So,
yes.
they're getting 50, 60, 100 moms on board to just start to ask for change. And that's how it's going to happen because, people are just in their day to day, even the heads of school, and the systems are in place. So you're just checking the boxes and everything's quote unquote running smoothly. But when you appeal to the heart space of like, well, 60% of our kids basically have a chronic illness and we're not going anywhere, in the proper direction. Like,
Yeah.
at what point are we going to say we have some accountability here and like, we're spending all this money on academics and all this stuff, like what percentage is going to the food, which is so foundational. So
Oh my
moms
goodness.
are powerful. So I encourage all your moms to just like, and dads, right? We need dads to get involved. Like one of our chefs in Texas, he's just like, "I know my space now. I'm the dad who's going to be shouting from the rooftops." And I'm like, yes, do it. Because we need that collaborative effort. Like the health of the family is typically falling on the shoulders of one, and it's typically the mom. And a lot of us are working or single. I'm divorced now and single working mom. And I mean, now I have a boyfriend, but for many years it was just like, oh my gosh, like how am I going to survive?
I know.
And so I sympathize with that. And what happens now is there's like a real, like my boyfriend will be like, "I'm going to throw a chuck roll, or I'm going to salt it tonight. Can you throw it in the oven?" The communication is there so that
Mhm.
it's like a real
Yeah,
nice
everyone's
balance. I mean,
involved. Yeah.
yeah. And like the kids, if you have little kids, like just get them involved, get them on the counter cracking eggs as soon as you can. And knowing about, this is a family thing, sitting down to family dinner is like such an important priority for me. It's not always like
Easy.
easy or pretty. And, it's just like,
It can be
and
messy.
sometimes it's like
Okay.
15 minutes. I'm like, "Wait, what happened? It's
Yeah,
over.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
But it's just like, I hope they remember that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Wow. So do you have resources for women like that want to make changes at their school? I mean, do you support people? Is it, because I know obviously you have a lot of resources. So tell me about the resources you have for us that we can access or we can start to explore if we're feeling really motivated to make some change.
Yeah, well, I would say, I mean, at School of Lunch, we are a huge resource for people. And that is our goal is that, I always say, like, I can't change a million schools, but I can train a million people. So,
Yeah.
like, as soon as people get trained, and this training academy is a 5 night intensive. We're working to put some stuff online too, so people who can't attend, can also get information. But it's like you drop in, you're immersed in nature. You can really let go of your day to day, and you're going to get infused with this value system and this love. And it's like so hard to put into words. I was like, this after this last one, I was just like, I think we should just put 100% money back guarantee on this thing, because it's like that if it doesn't change your life completely, like
Yeah.
people leave and they're just fired up and ready to go home and make beet kvass and bone broth and knock on the doors of their schools. And then we have this community that they're now a part of. Like we say, once you're in the soul fam, School of Lunch fam, you're in the soul fam for life. So that's what people need, is community. And we have like the resources of like, once you've been trained, and even people who haven't been trained, we'll do calls with people, but the goal is to get somebody from the community to come and understand this value system and then go spread it, within. And if you're coming from a school, like sending a chef or two chefs is amazing, because then you have, a couple people that are on the same page and they can really dive into their local food system. But, the different tiers of consulting where, like, what do you need when you graduate? Is your head of school on board? Are they not on board? Like, we're doing a dinner in Naples, Florida, in October to raise awareness about this, and the head of school will be there and the parents. And so it's just like, I think once the heads of school can start to see this is possible and it's happening, and the rewards and the benefits. I mean, I have this vision of having a training hub with thousands of pictures of all these kids with beautiful plates of food, just with the biggest smiles on their face, because visually you see it and you experience it. And that's what the parents feel when they come. It's just like, it's a no-brainer. It's
It is.
a no-brainer.
It would just and I just it just how it impacts the kids, their moods, their energy, just even to have one nutrient dense meal a day can be
That's,
life
yeah.
changing.
Yeah, Sally Fallon came to our school and she was just like, well, Weston Price found that too, that one meal a day, one nutrient dense meal a day made a huge difference. And Sally Fallon came, we had like a pig's ear and the beans, and she was just like, just this alone is like so awesome. So, I mean, it's just, it's so, and then it attracts people to the schools. When you start in your home, it attracts people to you and what you're doing. Like, people want to know, they don't know. So the more we speak up about it, the better off we'll be. So yeah, so resources, School of Lunch, obviously reach out. Anybody can DM me on Instagram. I'm very accessible there, but schooloflunch.com. We have lots of local, regional, national brands that we work with, which I'm just about like empowering moms with easy information. If you're just like, oh, which salt do I buy, or which,
Yeah.
ghee or whatever, it's just like, oh, School of Lunch uses this, like, yes, we'll go with that, because it's just like, I've done my research, I've done my vetting, we have great relationships, and the local people, just connecting. There are good people doing great things everywhere. So no matter if you're in like Oklahoma or Florida or California, obviously in California, we have like, an abundance of beautiful food year round. But even in New Hampshire, like I grew up in New Hampshire, we always say just scratch the surface and you'll find good people. But the Weston A. Price Foundation is really what got me started. They have chapter leaders all around the world, and their sole job is really to connect you to your local food system. So they all have lists of the local, farmers and what's available with, this way of eating. So I would highly recommend people look out for the Weston A. Price Foundation.
Yes, I'm going to actually put that in as a link just to the chapter so that they can look for their chapter leader, and then you email them. That's the process. You email them, say, hey, I want to be a part of this. And then you start to get in their email list or add it.
Yeah. And a lot of them have like monthly get-togethers, so you can start to learn. I mean, I was like thinking back when I first started this, like in the very beginning, when I was just doing, I think, cooking classes out of my home, I guess I went to the Institute for Integrative Nutrition because I wanted some sort of like title. So I was a holistic health counselor, and I got invited to speak at a church. And I was like, okay, great. So I went to, at night, it was like 7 o'clock at night, next town over. I brought all my little Weston Price brochures and I made little healthy snacks, and I just told my story. And there were like probably 20 women there. And one of them happened to be my co-author, who then came to my cooking class and was like, we should write a book. So you just never know how, just stepping out and saying yes to things. I was terrified. I'm like, well, who am I to share anything? Like, I don't know. But, people don't know about healthy fats. They don't know about the importance of good proteins. And, there's so much propaganda and information and misinformation. Now they're pushing plant-based. And I see these little kids kind of like blowing with the wind. They watch a documentary and it resonates with me because, you're just like, oh, I have
Yeah.
to give up meat to save the planet. But these
Right.
kids don't think about, A, that's not true. And B, they're growing their brains and their bodies, and you get one chance to do that. So the
Yes.
parents need to know how vital it is, right? So you don't want to exclude an entire food group, right? And so when
Oh,
you empower them
exactly.
with the information of where to get, good animals, and a lot of like one mom came to our training academy, she was vegan and she had kind of destroyed her health and blown out her thyroid and gained a bunch of weight. And she just said, I'm so done. Like, I don't even know what to do anymore. I'm just going to come to the academy totally open. And it was when we take people to the farmers market and teach them how to engage with their farmers and ask the right questions. And when she met our local rancher and shook her hand and heard her story and the integrity behind all she does, she was just like, this weight just kind of lifted off her shoulders, and she stepped into eating meat again. And so,
Wow.
and she's like 3 years now later, and she works in our kitchen. Like, she's amazing, and she's taking control of her own health. So it's just information. I think people are confused because there's so much information and misinformation. And so what's so liberating is that it's just real food. It's just like buy what you can afford and cook real food. Period. Period. If that's
Yes,
what you can
that's
do,
simple.
don't go all crazy on having to do, just start with
Yeah.
like making a chicken soup.
Yeah.
Whatever you have to do. Make sometimes for dinner when my kids were little, we're having eggs and tomato slices and avocado done.
Yeah.
Like glass of raw
Oh,
milk,
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
perfect. It takes 5 minutes.
The simplicity, you know what, Hillary, that's been a game changer for me too. Keep it simple. I
Yeah.
mean, really, just a couple things. You don't have to have all the sauces and all. Like, yeah, okay, if you're having a dinner party and you're gonna do that, hey, great. Knock yourself
Yeah.
up. I'm always like, it's dinner again.
I know. I mean, even last night I was like, oh, I feel so guilty. This is like so crazy because my daughter was like, she had made tuna fish at lunchtime, but she's like, I want to have tuna for dinner. I was like, okay. And like my son, one's going to the gym, one's coming back from lacrosse, and we just bought sausages at the farmer's market, but they're frozen. And then I had leftover turkey that we made. So my son was like, well, I'll have another turkey sandwich. So I was like, okay. So like one literally had sausages, one had tuna salad, one had a turkey sandwich, and I was just like, this is so crazy. And my daughter's like, why, mom? Everyone's happy. It's fine. And I was like, you're right. It doesn't really matter. Like, it's okay that we don't have this like, you know, perfect,
No. Yeah.
you know.
That's everything, because if we can just give ourselves grace and just be easy on ourselves, that's where we can really make changes. It's
Mhm.
when we just get so overwhelmed and stressed out, which that's part of it, but it's like, it's just take a breath, take the next step.
Yeah.
We ultimately, we know in our gut, just like you did, Hillary, your gut, your heart led you to discover the truth. And that's where we all are. And we just have to trust ourselves in that journey and that process, and not to try and push ourselves along. If we push ourselves along, we're going to fall on our face. We just have to take one step after the other. And I love that. Keep it simple, cook real whole food, and get in a Weston Price, like be inspired, start to connect
Mhm.
with people, right? Because that's what I'm really from
That's what
this
people
podcast
need.
really feeling is like, get connected to your community, people that are eating this way, and then you're gonna feel more supported.
Yeah. I just did a podcast a couple weeks ago, and this doctor, he was feeling like so disheartened and just like, oh, like couldn't kind of get out of his own way. And I was like, we got to bring you into the fold. Like, it's so fun over here. That's what we always say. Like, we're building a new boat. We're like, this ship can like sink. And
It's
like, we're
going
just
down.
building a new boat and making a joyful noise. Like, come join us over here. And so he's
Oh,
just like,
I love it.
he's like ordered from the Amish, and he's like texting me pictures. Like, I'm serving up like raw butter and raw milk and cheese and sourdough. And he's like bought a grain grinder and making his own sourdough, and, getting kefir grains. And like, you just need a little inspiration and community and encouragement. And that's where, like, once you get it and you get in your rhythms, you're going to pass it on to somebody else. And, now I'm like, I can't even believe that my triplets are going to be 21 this fall. Like, that's insane to
Oh
me.
my
So
gosh.
I'm like, oh my God, I'm like the elder almost who's like giving the information back. But I see these, that's why I love going to school, because these little like 5 and 6 year olds, I just want to like eat them up. I'm like, oh, I get to do it again, kind of, like
Yes,
give
yes.
them hugs and encourage them. And I just know as a parent, I would have given anything to have a lunch lady and a team of people that were every day just loving on my kids and serving up this food and encouraging them to try. And, that's a huge part of it. Like, I think you can't just drop off healthy food to kids and expect them to eat it at this point. Like, we got to retrain the taste buds. We got to normalize real food. So like I say, in the beginning, I'm like, give me 2 weeks, these little
Yeah.
kindergartners who are like, can barely see over the table. And they're just like, what is that? Like, I'm not used to this. And you just like, you put a little dab of dressing and you're just like, just dip your finger in it right now and try it, and then like, usually their eyes light up and they're like, oh, I like that, or a little piece of ground beef or whatever it is. And so it's that daily tending and developing the relationship with the children. They trust you. I mean, I was just saying, like last year with this kid, like we always make sure that they have something on their plate. Like if they go through the line, there's an empty plate. I'm like, okay, hold on a minute. Like, let's find you something. And so we'll always have like turkey or roast beef or salami. And there was this kid last year, like every day, where's the salami? I just want salami. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like at the end of the year, I'm like, dude, you're getting too old for this. Like I cannot, and my staff is like, you're babying him. I'm like, I know, like I can't help it. Like I don't know what to do anymore. Like, it's just salami. And then this year, I'd give him salami, cheese, whatever. This year, he's eating everything. I'm just like, high five, you are most improved. I don't know what happened, but he's just like, I don't know, I got over it.
They do. We just have to support that and not rush their process either, because it takes a minute. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, believe me, I'm the mom that's just like, eat it. My kids are still scarred from me trying to have them eat like chicken livers and bacon. They're just like, I'll never forget that day. They're gagging and this and that. And I'm just like, eat it. You have to eat it. It's good for you. And I was like so devastated. I put all this work into it. All you moms know. It's like you go to the great lengths and they're throwing stuff off the high chairs and you're in tears and the whole thing. But I can laugh about it now, but
yeah.
Part of me feels like teenagers are harder.
Oh my gosh. Well, and you cannot force feed your kids. Like you really can't. That's just going to traumatize them. So you have, yeah. And I always say this because I really believe this, Hilary. I wonder if you believe, but it's really embodying that change. It's eating that way yourself, and it's incorporating that, and we can choose. Like I'm no longer buying these Oreos from Costco. I'm not doing
That's
it.
what we do. We choke the system. So we say like what only good comes in, so only good can go out.
Exactly.
And that's what you have to do. You just have to make those choices, those good choices.
Yeah, absolutely. And not all of us have supportive, spouses too. And that we're working with that, so we got to just see what we have and just do the best we can.
And one thing I will say is that, for cost and stuff, a lot of people are like, it's more expensive. But if you think about nutrient density, and like our goal really is to keep these kids satiated. So a lot of that education and conversation, like there's a kid who's just having like piece of bread some of them go out for sandwich bar day or sandwich day, and they're out on the land the whole day. So they pack their lunches. So they usually pack like a beautiful sandwich. And then we have like, leftover bread ends that we'll put like honey and butter on the sprouted nut butters and stuff. And I'm like, you can't just have this, like, and whatever, you have to have protein and fats, and that's what's going to satiate you. So, this little boy the other day, I was like talking to him about it, and I'm like, here, have some cheese. And then I gave him stuck a hard-boiled egg in his pocket, and I look over and he's like eating the cheese and he peeling off his egg and he's eating it. But you have to watch them and be mindful and teach them about why, like in our little video on our website. This is a resource for people too. Like we have a video on what I do at the school that's 12 minutes, and then a video on the training academy that's 6 minutes. But in the school, and there's a little boy who's going, I used to feel like this all day long, up and down, up and down. And now I just feel like this, straight across. So we've put blood glucose monitors on parents, teachers, staff, and kids, and just as an empowerment tool. So understanding blood glucose and how, the power of satiety is really huge. So it's just empowering when you understand, like, so that, again, that nutrient density, if you're having a nutrient dense sausage from your local farmer and a salad and some broccoli, your kid's going to be, you and your children are going to be satiated. If you're having like, a little bit of mac and cheese and some fruit, it's not going to last that long, right? And then you're giving them some chips or some gummies or whatever, they're not satiated. So it's like human nature to eat until you're satiated, right? So if you have these empty calories and this ultra processed food, they're just overfed and undernourished. So they're going to keep wanting more. And
Yeah.
a lot of people can probably relate to that. And then it's also tricking your taste buds to like they're really designing these foods to make you have the craving. So it's like a lot of people say it's not our fault, really. They're messing with our systems and our chemicals in our brain so that we want to have more. And it's so you have to kind of step back.
Yeah, they're exploiting us. I mean, they
Yeah.
really are. It's just for money. How can we get these people addicted to these fake foods that actually, if they didn't have, certain things to keep them stable, they would be so disgusting. They would be so
Yeah.
like nobody would. It's like we have to really think like do we want to become these, chemicals that I can't even pronounce that aren't even real? I mean, at the end of the day,
No.
but we have to, right? It's like baby steps. It's like,
Yeah, and the hard thing is that it's like, I wish it would like you drink a Coke and you'd almost like, I don't really wish this, but you drop dead or something like horrific would happen. So you just wouldn't do it, right? Because it's like a slow drip of
yeah,
toxins.
that's
And
right.
every child, if you remember, every child has a different level. So if you think about whose cup is really full and what's going to tip it over,
Yeah.
right? Is it going to be that round of antibiotics? Is it going to be that round of vaccines? Is it going to be the ultra
Yeah.
processed foods? Like what the stress? So everyone's different. All of us are so different. So our cups are, at different levels of toxicity. And so it's really important to just be mindful to try because we can't control everything, right? We're breathing in the air and the water, all this stuff. So try to control what you can and then kind of let the rest go so that you don't stress over every little thing. Because if you're micromanaging it all, you can get paralyzed. I've
Oh,
been that mom where I'm just like, what am I gonna buy? Because everything is bad, and it's like,
everything's gonna be cancer, and I can't. Now I just starve. I'll just
and
have water.
then, you're just like, my daughter sitting in Whole Foods is like, I can't eat anything. And I'm just like, my husband's like, you've created a monster. I'm just like, I know, I don't know what to do. It's so bad. So,
It is so
I mean,
bad.
I've learned by doing, and I didn't do it perfectly by any means, but you just,
Oh,
again, like we were saying, you have to love yourself through it and just laugh at it in a way, because we didn't grow up in these little tribes where everyone's looking out for our kids and we're all eating together. And it's just like you eat what's,
I
in
want
front of you.
that. I really do.
I
It's in my
know.
heart to one day live that way
I
and
know.
make that possible. I believe in it so much because it is lonely. We live in our
Yeah.
own little houses. We do all the things, and then we're so busy because we're doing all the things that really at the end, there's a lot of things that we do that are not don't really give us good results. They're not good
Mm,
investments of our time. Like scroll, I used to spend 5, 6 hours on social media, Hilary.
yeah.
Think about that time
I
waste.
know.
I could have
Sometimes it'll tell me like how many hours. I'm like, what? That's not possible.
I
It's like, what
know
happened? I
it
know I
is.
just bought a book, How to Break Up with Your Phone. And I
Oh,
was I had an alarm clock that I got at a yard sale for free. And I like pulled it out. I'm like, I'm going to set this up because I just don't like having a phone in my room. It took me like 25 minutes to set the alarm. I couldn't figure out how to set the alarm clock. I was like, this is crazy. Like, become dumbed down because everything's so easy. I had the instructions and everything. I'm just like, how come I can't figure this out? I finally did. But then like right next to it is my book, like How to Break Up with Your Phone. I'm like, this is why we
yeah.
need to break up with our phones. Yeah.
Oh,
So
we
the
just,
amount of time, like when you invest in your kids, and if you think about if you can manage your time, or if you can audit your time a little bit, right?
yeah,
Like, what am
yeah,
I doing with my day? And if
yeah,
I could just put a couple hours towards, not even like an hour towards, sourcing food or,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah, and what I think one of the things, just especially with cooking for me, I'm curious, is just like prepping a little bit ahead of time,
Mhm.
a little here, a little there. Like, okay, tonight I know that I'm going to be I need onions and peppers for something. So like I have a few minutes, I'm going to chop that up. So when the time comes, I'm ready for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Or
it's
cook once, eat several times, right?
yes.
Like,
Oh, absolutely. Oh my
yeah.
gosh, that's everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you get your systems in place, like it really is like when I started the school lunch program, I was a hot mess. I'd like literally walk in and be like, what should we cook today? And now
Yeah.
it's like it's all like, mapped out a month ahead of time, and freedom is in the systems. And I've never been that mom at home that has like a meal plan or anything. I'm
Yeah.
still kind of fly by the seat of my pants, but if I have good food, I know like I've built my confidence. And that's the thing, like you have to earn your street cred. You have to step in the kitchen and earn your street cred, and just keep trying and failing and trying again and keep going. And that's when all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I'm in a good system here. Like I always have something that I can make something out of, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you have to be willing to fail at cooking. I
Yeah,
mean, it's just and just learning
without a doubt.
because we haven't been taught. Most of us were never taught. I remember when I moved out, I was calling my mom like every 10 minutes, what do I do this? What do I do that? Why
I
didn't
know, right?
I
Like you see it too, but you don't really pay attention. And you're just like,
know?
ah, yeah.
Yeah. I know it's a couple things in that, but yeah, so it takes something. But man, it's the best investment because you really get your return so quickly. Like
Yeah.
you really do. You feel satiated, you don't feel bloated, or you just feel better.
I
And
think most people don't know what it feels like to feel good,
I
unfortunately. I think
know.
most people have like bloating and leaky gut and different things, and
Yeah.
they're embarrassed and they don't want to talk about it and they don't know what to do. That's another resource is that GAPS, there are GAPS practitioners all over the world. So if you go to gaps.me, they will help you through. Actually, I'm signed up for the GAPS coaching course. I couldn't do the practitioner because I'm not like a licensed nutritionist or anything like that, but just to be able to coach people, but we had a GAPS practitioner when we went on the diet, and it was like so helpful just to have
Oh,
somebody hold my hand,
you need
tell me
that.
I'm not crazy, and like she just goes through all your health history, your parents' health history, like kind of take it back. So then it all kind of, you're like putting together a puzzle, right? Of like how this happened
Hmm.
or
Yeah.
why. And then you can kind of put it back together, and have somebody guide you through that because everyone is so different. So what works for one is not necessarily going to work for another. And that's what's beautiful about GAPS is that you kind of move forward or backwards or you pause based on your experience, right?
Mhm.
So you kind of really get very in tune with your own body and what's working for it.
Yeah, and
But
that's huge.
everyone can heal. Everyone can heal. So that's what I would like to say is just be encouraged that your body
Mhm.
wants to be in homeostasis.
Yes, it's a miraculous vehicle. It
Yeah. And
really
children heal very quickly.
is. Yes, we there's so much hope. There's so much hope, and I really do believe we can turn this around. If the right
Yeah.
people get elected, and I don't know, but again, it's not going to start from the top down. It's going to start from the bottom up. So it's like,
Yeah.
this is what it's really about, and this is what has been the mission of Hippie Moms is just help kind of bringing back that tribe where we used to learn from our, like you said, our
Mhm.
grandmothers, our aunts, our cousins. Everyone had this knowledge, and now we're just like doing it
Yeah.
all on our own. So we need to come back together some way, somehow.
And I think everyone needs to come to the table, right? Like we all need to start talking from the big people to the little people and just appeal, when you get in your heart space and the
Yeah.
money goes away, like what do we want? If we don't have a healthy next generation of kids, what do we have?
What is the point?
Right? What is the point? So
There
it's like
isn't. I mean,
now's the time.
yeah,
Yeah. And the
yeah.
kids are waking up. I mean, I believe me, I had to watch my son go off to college and I was like crying, just like looking at the school food. I was like, this is so depressing. And I had to like, he's like, I just don't feel well after I ate the food, Mom. It's so terrible. And then this year he's in a fraternity house and I was like, oh God. But he's got a job where he's like on the grill at the job. And then I was like, told him last year, I'm like, just get a grill at your fraternity house and just like be the grill master. And so he texted me a picture just like a couple days ago of like they got a Blackstone, just like a flat top grill, and he had steaks and asparagus on there. I'm like, oh, he's doing it. I'm like, you're gonna be the favorite. Keep going, keep going. So,
No kidding.
because it's so hard. Like you just work so hard, and then they go off, and you're like, wait, what? Oh,
You just
there's just
hope.
like there's not really a good path forward for them unless they're gonna. He's like, I'm not gonna be the kid in my dorm that's like in the basement cooking my own food. And I was like, I get it, but you could,
But look what's unfolding, and look what
right.
all of the things that you've done prior and that he's seen and he's learned. It wasn't because you were shoving it down his throat. It's like he saw
Well,
it. And then he had to go through his own experience of I don't feel good. I need to make changes, not because my mom's telling me to change, but because I want to. And then he
to
created
just,
that.
yeah, I know I'm proud of him, but I did shove it down their throats pretty much their
I
whole
did too.
life. So they're
No,
kind of
I
like,
did.
they're kind of like, um,
Oh my gosh. My youngest calls me and he's like, Mom, we had it, we've talked about this. Okay. It's my you can't let me have my moment. Let me eat what feels good for me. And okay. I'm just
yeah,
saying. I'm just
I
saying.
know. I'm just like, but I told you. Why would you do that? And then they're
They
just
have to
like,
have their own process,
you
just
have
like
to.
we
We
did.
did. I know. I was like, anything my mom said, I was like, see you later,
And and I think something you said, and we're going to wrap this up in a minute because I think we could absolutely talk forever,
I know.
is what you said earlier, just about like, when they have that experience, when you're not feeling well, a lot of people don't know it. They don't know that they are not feeling good. But then eventually when you start to feel good, like you got to have that dichotomy. You have to
Yeah.
know how is it what to feel good and how is it to feel bad. And that's what your son had to go through, and it's like, so people have to have their processes. We have to allow everyone to have their processes in our home, whether it's our spouse, our husband, our kids. The only one we can control is us and what we
Yes.
bring in and what we vote. And it's like, we are the gateways to our family. And
Yeah.
Hilary, I just love what you're doing. I love your story.
Mm.
Oh my gosh, this is just so fun. And I really feel and I want to support you. So I'm going to make sure all the resources that we talked about are going to be in the
Yeah.
show.
And we have 4 training academies. We're like jumping in the deep end. Like we usually do 2 in the summer because we're cooking at the school the other 10 months the year, but we're going to do one in February, in April. I mean, I don't know when this will come out, but February, April, and then June and August.
And are these
So
retreats? Are they
they're
retreats?
like retreats. It's like the ultimate adult camp, like
Wow.
cooking camp, but like lifestyle camp. Like you're going to get all of it in 5 nights and you're going to have
Oh
an
my God.
awesome community and you'll be on fire to just like be the ripple
Oh
and
my
take
God.
control of your health and your family's health. And
I want to
yeah.
go. Okay.
So
Yeah.
yes, you should come. Oh my
Oh
gosh.
my gosh. It'd be so
Amazing.
fun.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I'll give you that. I'll send you that
Perfect.
resource.
That would be
It'll
great.
be on schooloflunch.com.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay, good. All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having
Yeah,
me.
you're so
Really appreciate
welcome.
it.
Yeah, it was so fun. All right, everyone. I'll make sure to check the show notes and we'll catch you on the next Hippie Moms podcast. Bye.